Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about Sunderland. We are talking about their survival blueprint, how the recruitment has shaped what this team is going to look like this season, and how Sunderland are not just going to survive but thrive in the Premier League. So in terms of player attributes, Sunderland have recruited 11 players at the time of this video, and they'll probably add a few more before the window's out, but I think you look at what Sunderland have done, and I feel like it fits a typical mould. And I remember Thomas Frank saying, the blueprint to survive is pretty much win at home, be really, really good at set pieces. And that, I think, is Sunderland have done that to a large extent. That seems to be what they've targeted this season. I'm going to go through sort of why I think that. So we'll start with Robin Roofs, who comes in goal. This is a goalkeeper who is excellent at collecting crosses. That is probably the thing he is best at, which fits into the sort of thought of having, a team that's really, really good at set pieces. This is somebody where if you were to plonk a ball on the 6-yard line, you would expect Robin Roofs would come out and collect it. And that will help Sunderland massively when it comes to defending set pieces. And I think Roofs reminds me a little bit of when Sunderland signed Simon Mignolet. Look, he's going to have rough edges to him because of his age, but fundamentally the foundation is there for a top level goalkeeper. And I think his collecting of crosses will be massive for Sunderland this season, particularly if they are defending leads late on. You know how it can get late in the game. You may be winning 1-0, trying to hold on. Having a goalkeeper who can just come out, collect the ball is massive. Into defence, if we look at left back, Ronaldo and Masuaku have come in there, and I think that's a good mix of experience, but only that, physicality. Both are very, very quick. Both are pretty good physically. Slightly different players. I think Ronaldo's a little bit more defensive, whereas Masuaku, I think, is going to be far more attacking, and I can see situations where if a game is tight or Sunderland maybe are losing a game, they can switch out Ronaldo for Masuaku, and we've also got Dennis Serkin there as well, but obviously he's got a patchy injury record. But I can see situations where Sunderland are needing to get back into a game and they'll go with Masuaku just because he is so good in attack. But I think this is also fits into, an experienced players, but also the pace and the physicality is massive, and I think that's clear in everything Sunderland are doing, that they are things they've wanted. It's centre-back, Alderete coming in, him partnering with Dan Ballard. I think that's such a rock-solid defensive partnership. We've talked about the set pieces going forward and defensively. Those two are going to be massive for us because they are going to be so good at clearing the balls out. Alderete, I saw the Getafe president basically saying he's one of the best centre-backs in La Liga. Sunderland have picked him up. I have no doubt that he'll slot in perfectly to this team. He's an international as well, and I think that's a major pickup for Sunderland. And this is a player that's physical. We know that he's got really good long balls. He's good at getting the ball out of defence. He's very progressive in the way that he deals with the ball, but he's also just a top-class defender. And I think his aggression will be so important for attacking and defending set pieces as well. So I think it's clear to see what Sunderland have done there in defence. I still think they'll bring in one more centre-back. I still think they probably need cover for right-back. But overall, the defence, you can see what Sunderland have tried to do, and it's add that physicality in there. So really, really impressed there. Into midfield, Diarra and Siddiqui, both are pacey, both are legs, both are powerful. And it's basically like having two Duracell bunnies in there. That's exactly what you need in the Premier League. Players who can get up and down, can do the defensive side of things, can help out in attack, and are brilliant for a transition game of football. And that's exactly what Sunderland needed in there. You added in there as well Granit Xhaka, who is experienced. Every club pretty much in the Premier League outside of maybe the big sort of 5 or 6 teams would have taken Granit Xhaka. He is a top level midfielder. We've seen that in pre-season, just how good he is. So good at dictating the ball. He's got experience. He's a ball mover. He's physical. He's still very mobile. And, he's probably the most important player to Sunderland's chances of doing well in the Premier League this season. Obviously, Enzo Lafayette's coming in on a permanent. We all know what he's about. He's creative. He can change the game. We saw that in the playoffs, how important he was. Even though he didn't have his best games, all the significant moments generally came around Enzo Lafayette. Such a good player. And I can see in games where we need to unlock a door, he is the sort of player you want to do that. I don't think we've got another player as good as him at breaking through defences. In the final third, we went for younger, quick players. You can see exactly what we're trying to do there. Dinger's got Premier League experience, but is still a really good age. Talby, I think that feels more like a long-term project, but again, you see his attributes. He's very quick, very dribbly. And Mark Gio, he's got a huge reputation from Barcelona. He adds something very different to what we've got in terms of Mayenda and Isidore. and it's about physicality in there. He's more physical, and I think he'll thrive with more minutes. He's got very good reports from Chelsea. So overall, you look at what Sunderland have recruited and added to what they've already got, and it's very clear that they've went, technical and physical. Very, very important in the Premier League to have players that can sort of do both, and it's players that can develop as well going forward. And I think this comes to the play style at Sunderland. If we talk about a blueprint, Sunderland had success last season largely because they were versatile in how they played. Sunderland were probably at their best at the start of the season, when they were playing in transition, when they were dominating teams, when they had energy. And I think a lot of the signings sort of tell me that that's possibly the way we're going to try and play games. We're going to be a very, very good transition team. And that doesn't just mean sitting in a low block. Transition can just mean when you have the ball, you try and get it forward as quickly as possible. Try and use the pace on the wings. Try and get the ball through midfield. We've got really good passes of the ball. And I think that's kind of what the blueprint is for Sunderland this season. Think back to like that Burnley game. We played away at Turf Moor and we went there and we didn't sit. We didn't just go, right, we're away from home, let's sit. We've really had a go at them that day. We saw it at Sheffield United away as well, and we saw it in other games last season where Sunderland really, really had a go, and especially against the teams who are better in the league. Sunderland generally did pretty well in dictating them, and I think we'll see that in the Premier League when they are playing teams. I do not for 1 second think, just because in the playoffs we played with a low block, that Sunderland will just approach every game to sit in a low block and counter-attack. I don't see that being the case. I think it's going to be very much a team that wants to be in transition, but it doesn't mean sitting in a low block. It just means getting the ball up the pitch quickly. That's what Sunderland have recruited for, and I think that's what they're going to be really good at this season. It's never going to be about, Sunderland will struggle in games if they are slowing it down and trying to pass it through around the middle of the park and in defence. That's not going to be how Sunderland win games. I'm not saying they won't do that at times, but in terms of attacking, this Sunderland team are going to have a lot more success when they are breaking through the lines quickly, when it goes from defence to midfield to attack. And it feels like even Alderete coming in, who's a really good long ball player, he is going to fit that perfectly as well, because if he's got the ball at the back and he's looking, right, I can ping the ball over onto a wing and spark a counter-attack. Sunderland have got pace. They've got pace pretty much everywhere on the pitch. So transition is going to be absolutely massive. Transition in terms of how we play the ball up through the thirds is going to be huge for Sunderland this season. And that probably shows what Sunderland will be doing away from home. I think at home, it's going to be quick transitioning through the thirds. Away from home, maybe they will go into a lower block, especially against the better teams in the Premier League. It's always going to be difficult when you're going away to Man City and stuff. You're not going to be able to go there and play your own game perfectly. What you're going to have to do is try and stifle them. And I think Sunderland have kind of got the players to help them do that. Look, but you're not going to target winning points at the Emirates in the City of Manchester Stadium. But you can go there and frustrate them and try and get something. We've seen Sunderland in the Premier League in years past have actually done all right at the bigger grounds. But I look at Alderete, I look at Ballard, I look at that midfield, I look at Xhaka protecting in there. And I think Sunderland can go into that low block and try and hit teams on the counter-attack. I think we can do that. I just don't think that's going to be the go-to plan per se. So the style, I think what they've recruited is pretty much going to fit the early season play. That's how I expect Sunderland to play this season, is that early sort of first 2 or 3 months when they were under Reggie Labrie and they had that sort of freedom. That's what I think Sunderland will do. That's what I think they've built this squad to be. And I don't expect them to play like they did in the playoffs. And I think some people are sort of naive, maybe pundits sort of looking at that going, oh, well, Sunderland defensive, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think Sunderland are going to be a really, really exciting team in the Premier League. So overall, I suppose, to finish this off, what really is the blueprint? And I think the blueprint was to bring in physical, quick players who will help Sunderland defensively and in transition. We haven't brought in players who are going to thrive from holding the ball for 65% of the game. That is not a smart way of playing. I also don't think Sunderland are going to fall into the trap that other teams in the Premier League that have come up recently have, where it's overplaying from the back and whatnot. I think Sunderland are just going to be super transition. That's how they want to win games of football, is meaningful passes, not just passes for passes' sake. And I think the players they've brought in really, really fit that. And I think this team will become unstuck this season if we play in a pedestrian fashion. I imagine our worst performances will be when we are holding the ball. Maybe teams are playing a low block if we concede an early goal at home and a team's sitting in trying to hold on to a 1-0 lead. That is where this team will struggle. They do have players like Enzo Lefebvre and Chris Rigg and Xhaka who are excellent at breaking through lines, but that's my sort of one area of weakness for us. I think that we will really, really struggle if teams come to the Stadium of Light and try and hold on to leads or try and hold on for a point. And those are the areas where this team, I think, isn't really necessarily built for. We are definitely built for pace in behind, and transitioning quickly up and down the pitch. So let me know what you think in the comments heading into the new season, what you think of Sunderland's transfer business and whether or not this blueprint that I'm talking about is the way you expect us to play. Hopefully it is, because it'll be really exciting if Sunderland kind of play in this way. And I do have hope. I've got more optimistic as pre-season has went on that this could be a really exciting season for Sunderland where we can not only survive but thrive. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll catch you for the next video.